You said yes?
Yes.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the special meeting of the Tompkins County Legislature. We have one agenda item today, and Kathy and I are taking dibs on how short this meeting is going to be. So it is their time. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call of members.
Glenn Maury,
Here.
Martha Robertson,
Here.
Mike Sigler, Shauna Black.
Here.
Amanda Champion,
Here.
Deborah Dawson,
Here.
Henry Granison,
Yeah.
Rich John,
Here.
Anna Kellis,
Here.
Dan Klein,
Here.
Ann Foreman,
Present.
Mike Lane,
Here,
Dave McKenna,
Here.
Leslyn McBean Claiborne,
Present.
13 members present.
Thank you very much. All right. Item on the agenda, I'm going to move to Budget and Capital Committee, Martha Robertson Chair, to take up the resolution, understanding also legislators if there's still room for any other amendments to the budget as we've been going along. Martha, Chairwoman of Budget and Capital and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to everybody for coming to this special meeting of the legislature. I would move to get this on the floor and then maybe say a few words. Resolution A, ID 9676, adoption of amendments to the 2021 tentative Tompkins County budget and 2021 to 2025 capital program. I so move.
Moved by
A
Martha.
second.
May I have a second, please? Seconded by Deb Dawson. Discussion or amendments. Go ahead, Martha.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to thank everybody for getting us here, starting with our department heads all summer long, with Jason and other staff coming together for, I think we had 3 retreats, 3 long sessions before we even got to department head proposals. And as an expanded budget committee, 20 some hours of meetings. And I think we're at a good place for a budget that we can send to the public for their comments. I think with all these hours, we have managed to bring in a tax levy that is relatively low, lower than many of us feared at the beginning. That's in the resolution. Overall, we've cut spending 6%. We've cut our roster of employees by 47 full-time positions. We're doing a little bit of everything here. We're using the rainy day fund. There's a small tax increase. We've done a lot with efficiency, lowering health insurance costs, and still maintaining our commitment to our values and our residents, importantly, to the services that they really, really need and depend on. All this in a climate where our federal aid is down 6% overall, state aid projected to be down 13.5%, could be much more than that, and sales tax down more than 8%. So in a way, it's a little bit of, maybe a lot of magic, and we really, really have to thank Jason for pulling all this stuff together. So just to get on the record here, the total tax levy amount is 52 million, a little bit more. Approximate tax levy increase of 2.21%. The average tax rate will be $6.21 per thousand, a decrease in the rate of 1.61%. And for a home, the median priced home in our community is $200,000 for that home. This budget, as amended, would result in an increased tax payment of $42.77 So those are the sort of the top line figures. And again, I thank everybody for everybody's hard work on getting us to this point.
Thank you, Martha. Kathy, can you put a little more volume?
Were you able to hear me?
Henry. Hear me?
I don't know. They hear you?
Henry, I'm calling on you. Did you hear me?
Oh, no, I did not. No, I do. I'd like to make an amendment to the budget for an OTR number 12 to be considered by this legislature. It's for the early intervention
The what?
of early intervention and homelessness prevention funding. And it's for $20,000 one time.
That's a long year.
Long year.
Should have received an email about it earlier today.
Henry, you're choppy. You're saying for $20,000.
Yes, I'm saying it's an OTR number 12. The OTR that was denied was for 40,000. This one is only for 20,000.
And is it target or one-time funding that you're moving?
I guess one-time funding.
One-time funding, $20,000, one-time funding, early intervention homelessness prevention for law in New York. Moved by Henry. Is there a second? Second by Anna Kellis. Discussion. Martha. Oh, I see Greg up here too.
Yes, thanks, Henry and Anna. I got this, an email. I went to a few people this morning, and I'm glad Greg was able to be here. Just as a summary, this is the third year of funding that we intended for 3 years. It was a 3-year one-time allocation. The first 2 years, it was 40,000. They were not able to have the staff be consistent through that. So there's about $20,000 in savings left. So they can continue and do the third year of this program with just 20,000. I feel like this position is to intervene before somebody ends up in eviction court, before they end up with all of their goods on the sidewalk, to try to do case management to help stave off the really devastating effects of eviction. And especially at a time when we're worried that the moratorium on evictions related to COVID is about to end. So I'm happy that this came through. Seems it had fallen through the cracks, and I'm happy to support it.
All right, I was gonna ask Greg to give us a little information about it before I call in others, since he's here.
Okay, the whole focus of our early intervention homelessness prevention program is to deal with those callers who contact our office and say, I'm afraid I'm going to be evicted. My landlord said something, or code enforcement was here, or I've gotten a notice that I have to be out, but it hasn't yet reached the stage where an eviction proceeding has been filed. There's no court proceeding. Those are the kinds of things that we usually handle with our staff attorneys through the traditional litigation mode, where we do a one-shot crisis intervention to try to prevent the eviction and then make referrals to appropriate agencies for those folks to get help. We see a lot of people calling us that we can't help under those traditional roles because they have convoluted lives. They have issues with domestic violence or drug or alcohol use, or they're just living in substandard housing conditions, or they just can't afford to pay the rent where they're living, and they need help from some other sources, and they have difficulty navigating the various bureaucracies that they have to deal with. So when we first started this, we had a very successful first year getting involved with people when they contacted us, and really providing a case management approach to getting people connected with the right sources of help. getting them back on track and signed up for some of the alternative subsidized housing programs, and thereby avoiding having them go through an eviction process or ending up in the shelter system. We would like to be able to continue that. We're ready to get that restarted right now. We've done recruiting and interviewing for replacement staff for that. I just need to go ahead to say that we have enough funding to do that. Incidentally, we have received, or we're scheduled to receive additional funding through the Emergency Solutions Grant through DSS. That is specifically targeted for more of the traditional litigation services. We're using that funding to leverage some of our own fund balance to fund a staff attorney position that's been vacant for a year and a half. So we're in the process of hiring that person within the next week or so. They should be able to start December 1st. If we can have the person on paralegal in place to do the early intervention program, we'll continue to coordinate with the other homeless and housing providers in town to try to get that preventive aspect solidified and make sure that we deal with people before they end up on the street.
Thank you, Greg. I have Mike Lean, Anna Kellis, Shauna Black. Mike Lean?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned here. This is the second year that we've had this coming, Law New York coming to us very late in the process and asking for money. To me, Law New York should be making their pitch through the Human Services Coalition, as should OAR. We shouldn't be treating OAR and Law New York as separate entities. So perhaps this would be an amendment on the floor when we finally get to actually adopting the budget after public hearing, but I'm a little concerned at this point, and I don't think I can support it.
Thank you, Mike. Anna Kellis?
Yeah, I guess I have a few questions trying to understand. You normally do go through the Human Services Coalition, and if you could give us some background of why this did not. And so that's my first question. If you could just answer that, and then I'll give you my second question.
Okay, this request did go through the Human Services Coalition and was recommended for full funding at the $40,000 figure. I understand that Jason had concerns about that and suggested that because we hadn't had this fully staffed for the second year, that we could use that unused money for next year's service. And that's what I'm proposing now.
Okay, and so my second question, and that leads into it, is I have a concern about the funding for the program, that it might not be sufficient to maintain someone. I understand that after you take out the benefits, it's somewhere around $30,000 a year. Is that correct?
Yes, this would be funded at our paralegal salary scale, which starts at $30,000 a year. The person we have lined up for this position is a current AmeriCorps member, so she'd be coming in at step 2 of our salary scale at $31,000 a year.
Do you think that's influenced maintaining a person in this position?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we have 5 staff paralegals who are working at less than what they deserve to earn, but we're humans.
Thank you.
All right. Shauna Black and then Dan Klein.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for coming tonight. I had a question because I know that Jason did not recommend this as part of the funding for the upcoming budget. And I think that the thought behind that was pretty solid in that the position was not filled last year. And so you could use the funding, the $20,000 from last year, or at least partial funding of that to fund this year. And then you had also mentioned in your email that you would be pulling from your fund balance to fund the additional $20,000. So whenever I do the math, that equals $40,000. So I guess I'm wondering why you're coming to us and asking for an additional $20,000. Maybe I'm not understanding the math here.
Okay. Okay, I think the math is not, well, let me just run through it.
Okay.
Yes, this was funded at $40,000 for 2020, and we did have a staff person in place until July. So we have not, I mean, we have had other people trying to cover for this kind of service since then on a case-by-case basis as they can fit casework into their other assignments. But we basically have not spent half of the 2020 allocation for a full-time staff paralegal to do the case management services. So that money's in our fund balance now. So what we're asking for is a grant for next year of $20,000 to add to that $20,000 for a total of $40,000 for the third year, which is the same amount that it was funded at for year 1 and year 2.
And do you happen to have a tally of how many people have gone through this program, or how many went through it last year? And then in a typical year, how many people would use this program?
Sorry, I didn't pull those numbers out for this meeting. I think we had about 40 cases handled last year. This year, with the staff turnover and COVID kicking in, it's been a much lower number, but I think we served about 10 or 15 clients for the first half of the year.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Shauna. Thanks, Greg. Dan Klein.
Greg, we were told during an earlier budget meeting that inability to pay was not, I don't know if I have the words exactly right here, was not a legal ground to avoid eviction. In other words, there were reasons why you can't be evicted, but inability to pay was not one of them. Did we hear that correctly?
I'm trying to remember what, at this point, the way the moratoriums are written, inability to pay doesn't relieve you from liability for the debt of the rent. It can be grounds for eviction, obviously, in a traditional eviction scenario. Those are typically non-payment of rent or holding over after the expiration of a lease term. What the moratoriums have done is put a hold on the excess, but it doesn't stop the accumulation of the debt that the tenant owes to the landlord. So what we're going to have to do is come up with creative solutions to help tenants resolve that debt situation with emergency assistance or loans or payment plans, whatever we can come up with on a case-by-case basis, to try to prevent them from being evicted somewhere down the road when the moratorium is lifted and the landlord can get back in court. We are trying to head off that process and solve whatever the underlying problem is.
So your program doesn't just deal with, I don't know how to say this, legal issues. Your program also helps to find funding for a person to stay in their home, their rental.
More often than not, we help people appeal the denial of an application for emergency assistance or funding or participation in a program like the Section 8 rent subsidy program, the STEP graduated subsidy program, even eligibility to stay at the shelter. Anytime a person who's in a crisis situation who goes and tries to access those services, there's a risk that they'll be denied services, and they very likely have a right to appeal that denial. We can't win all of those cases because sometimes the denial is justified, but we try to make sure that people receive due process, they get their day in court or an administrative hearing, and we do a lot of negotiations with landlords to try to resolve problems, set up payment plans, access other services that are available, whether it's get situation, or giving them time to get enrolled into a drug or alcohol treatment plan, or just waiting until they can find affordable housing.
Thank you.
All right, Deborah, did you still have your hand up? Okay. I see you, Martha. I'm just trying to call on the people who were waiting, who haven't spoken before. So now I have Martha, then Henry, then Anna.
Thank you very much. So let me get this right. So the first year of the intended 3 years was 2019. And you had somebody in the position all or most of 2019, is that right?
Most of 2019, it took some time to hire somebody, and she worked through most of that year.
Okay, so there was, and that in that year, the person handled about 40 cases. This year, you did replace that person, and the person you had stayed till about July. And even though there was an eviction on moratorium on evictions, for most of the time, there were about 10 to 15 cases that person helped. So, and the way I understood this when we first created this OTR was people facing eviction don't have attorneys. It's not like if you're facing a criminal charge, we assign you an attorney. That's the assigned counsel program in New York State. There's no assigned counsel for somebody facing a civil matter. So the landlord usually has an attorney, but the tenant doesn't. So Law New York steps in that case. And when you talked about why you needed this position, it was often just that lack of stewardship, that lack of helping somebody through the legal system that would end up putting them on the street. And you felt that the cost of putting somebody on the street to the county was way more than $40,000 a year. And that by having this position, you could show that we had made a good investment. I think the STEP program in DSS is essentially that idea, as I understand it. So do I have that right? Am I explaining it right? Greg?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm not sure that we have enough data yet to show the cost effectiveness of it, but on an individual case basis, that's the rationale.
Okay. And what you said before about inability to pay, that during this moratorium, it's a pause, but the bills are still going to be due when the moratorium is over. So we're worried about a flood of evictions because people won't have the money to pay all that back rent. Is that right?
Right. Yes, but we really don't have a solid number on how many people just stopped paying their rent when they heard there was a moratorium. But certainly a great number of people who lost their jobs didn't have income anymore, couldn't pay the rent during the COVID crisis, and the supplemental unemployment benefits just haven't been enough and haven't been continued to allow them to meet their obligations. That's
right. And we do have a rental assistance program, but it hasn't reached that many people because there are a lot of hoops that people have to go through. So in my mind, this is, and I'm really glad this is coming to us. I think there was a communication gap, whether it's between you and Human Services Coalition or the coalition and us, or however, that the coalition did approve this at the full 40,000. So I'm really glad you brought this to us before it was too late, so that we could consider this. It's only 20,000. Sounds like it would really save a tremendous amount of misery and perhaps a lot of money for the county. So thanks for helping us understand it, Greg.
All right. Henry and Anna, I've got two people who haven't spoken yet. So if you don't mind, I'll call on them. Thank you. Deborah and Ann Corman, then Anna and Henry.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. A point of order. Was this motion offered as an amendment to the resolution that Martha and I moved, in which case should we be asking if it's friendly?
No, it's an amendment. So we're discussing the amendment. So no, you don't have to suspend anything.
No, but if it's a friendly amendment,
If it's a friendly amendment, then we don't have to have quite the amount of extended debate on it. That was my point.
I beg your pardon, we're gonna vote on the amendment and then we'll vote on the main motion.
Right,
But-
but I could accept it as friendly, like any other amendment.
I'm sorry?
Couldn't, as a mover, I could accept it as friendly, couldn't I?
You can, you and the mover and the seconder can accept it as friendly, but we still have to vote on it.
We vote on the main motion.
On the main motion with that.
Yes, I would accept it as friendly then. Thanks, Deborah.
Me too.
Okay.
Well,
So now that's part of the main motion, or the main motion now includes this. Because it's a friendly amendment to you too. So I'm sure, there's more conversation to happen on it. I see your mind. So now the main motion includes this friendly amendment. Everybody clear on that? Of $20,000 to Law New York. Okay, Annie.
I wanted to thank those who brought this forward, Henry, because I had been thinking about this and then it kind of slipped my mind that this program is very important, to help people, especially now. So in short, I am happy it's brought forth and I'm happy it's part of our main motion tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Henry Henry.
yes, well, a point of order. Do we need to discuss this anymore since it's been accepted as a friendly amendment?
We're discussing the main motion, which is this is part of the main motion.
Okay. Well, Greg, did you guys keep stats on the number of calls you received during the time period when the eviction moratorium was upheld in terms of how many cases this person would handle?
We try to record information for every call we get. That's been a little difficult during remote operations, but we should have the rough data entered in our database in terms of how many calls we got and how many we actually directed to that staff person.
Okay, and I assume that you do not, I assume you said that you also hired an attorney, that you've been not at full staff in the housing eviction notice department for a while?
Right, we've not been fully staffed since two of my attorneys retired last year. So
Okay.
Yeah, we
And
finally
I-
had enough funding coming in to satisfy the management team that we could afford to fill those positions.
Okay, thanks.
Anna, Rich, Mike Lane, and then let's take the motion to a vote, please.
yeah, I would just say I really respect my colleagues who are struggling with this one. I'm glad to hear that and I didn't realize this, that it was an OTR that was submitted. It went through the normal process. It went through Human Services Coalition. It was brought to Jason. Jason didn't recommend it. It sounds like it was a simple matter of none of us picked it up to champion it during the budget process. That's different than it never being brought forward. So I really appreciate that clarification. I understand it's super difficult because we're sort of at the end and we're all really fatigued by the process, understandably. I don't think that there's an issue listening to all of this that is more important right now. We don't see it necessarily because we're in a moratorium, but throughout the state, it's been made really clear that once that moratorium is lifted, we're going to see a tsunami of evictions, and I'm super concerned about them. And Law New York's our only medium right now that really handles the cases that cannot afford a lawyer. The one thing about this position I'll say, and then I'll hand it over, is that I appreciate that it's case management focused, that it steps in sooner in the process to possibly head off a case that could become an eviction. That's what you've used it for. And the numbers are therefore understandably lower than maybe some others because there is a higher touch point and more case management, as was mentioned by Greg earlier. So just wanted to note that when people are thinking about the numbers. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Anna. Rich?
Thank you, Leslie. From a process standpoint, given the odd nature this has come before us, I kind of wish it wasn't a friendly amendment so that we could have a clear vote on it. But be that as it may,
Take it out.
I think it's okay. I'll support it. I just hope for future years we get it in the regular process.
Thank you, Rich. Mike?
Yeah, I'd like to move to remove the friendly amendment so that we can vote on it. If I get a second.
Is there a second to that? Seconded by Rich John. Discussion, Dan Klein.
So I'll try not to get too far into the weeds here, but as part of the Rules Committee, we've been looking at all the stuff that's in the rules and in Robert's Rules of Order, and it turns out there's no friendly amendment in Robert's Rules of Order. The common use of friendly amendment is that it can be accepted as an amendment, but that if any member objects, it's not part of the amendment. So I support what Mike's doing here is to separate it out. I will be voting in favor of it, but just as a process point, we really should vote on this amendment separately and then vote on the whole budget.
All right, let's vote on separating it out from the budget. We have, do we have to move it again? We don't have to move it again, right? We have to vote on separating it out.
Correct.
So let's vote on that part and see where it goes.
Martha has a hand
Glenn?
raised.
I'm sorry, I see hands up.
Thank you.
Martha has a hand raised.
I have,
One question, what are we voting on? Are we voting on the $20,000 amendment? Or are we voting on to take the friendly out of the motion?
the latter of what you said. We're voting and taking the friendly out of the whole budget amendments there. Amanda. And then Martha, I see you.
Well, yeah, I was just trying to clarify too. I'm not sure what that means, take the friendly. Are we vote, because it's been added to the budget now. So are we?
And so we're voting to take it back out
Okay, all right, thank you.
so that it can be voted on separately. Martha?
Thank you. I agree with taking it out. I think it's fair to have a separate vote on it. Although this is what we do, at this point in the budget process as the legislature and not as the expanded budget committee. This is actually what the process is, but I'll respect the interest in voting on it separately. The idea that there's no friendly amendment, I think to just kind of toss that into the middle of a discussion when this is the rest of us have heard of it. So that's a little bit of a concern, but because I'd like to hear about that. I'd like to see if that's.
And we'll get to that, but can we?
I'd like to finish, the fact that if our rules are different than, we have a lot of.
I don't want us to go down on the road on the rules right now.
Okay.
Okay, you said something about it. So can we just vote on what's on the table right now? Because I don't want to lose people's votes.
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, thank you. So what's on the table is to take the amendment of $20,000 to Law New York for the early intervention homelessness prevention program out of the amended budget so it can be voted on separately. It was moved by Mike Lane, seconded by Rich John. Let's vote on it. If you vote yes, you're voting to take it out of the amended budget right now so it can be voted on separately. If you vote no, you want it to stay in there as let me find another word than friendly.
It's part of the main motion.
As part of the main motion. So, all right, got it? Roll call vote.
Glenn Maury,
Yes,
Martha Robertson,
Yes.
Mike, Shauna Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
No.
Henry Grandison,
No.
Rich John,
Yes.
Anna Kellis,
Yes,
Anna, did you say yes or no?
yes,
Okay.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes,
Dave McKenna,
No.
Leslie McBean Claiborne,
Yes.
10 ayes, 3 noes. Motion carries.
Okay, so that motion carries to take it out. Rich John.
I would call the question.
Call the question. Do we have to put it back on the table?
yes. It needs to be put back on the table to vote on.
Hold on a second.
it's back, it's back.
I wouldn't think so.
Once it's taken out, it's back. So it's on the table.
You can move it again.
It was moved by Martha. It was seconded by Deb Dawson. Do we need to move and second it again?
It was moved by Henry,
Yeah,
Right.
not that motion.
All right,
And seconded by
sorry.
Anna.
second
Sorry.
by Anna, yeah.
So yes, we should.
You can, or I think it's kind of.
All right, look, we're
Fine.
not gonna go through moving and seconding it again. It is back on the table as was moved by Henry and seconded by
Anna.
Anna.
I will second the call to question.
Why do I have Martha and Deborah? All right, so Anna is seconding the call to question. Thank you for indulging me so that we were clear on what we're doing. Now the motion on the table to be voted on, that the question was called on, is to appropriate amend what we have, the tentative budget by $20,000 to go to Law New York
One time.
for the early intervention homelessness prevention program. Are we all clear? That's what you're voting on.
I thought we
Just
were
voting on
just
whether to
voting on
vote on
calling the question.
Pardon?
We're voting on whether to vote on it.
That's what it is. So
Someone called the question.
sorry, we're voting on
Calling the question.
calling the question. I'm sorry, I forgot that part of it. All right, sorry. Calling the question. All in favor of calling the question. Here we go.
Glenn Maury,
yes,
Martha Robertson,
Yes.
Mike Sigler, Shauna Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes, please.
Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Anna Kellis,
Yes,
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes,
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Leslie McBean Claiborne.
Yes.
13 ayes, 0 noes.
Okay, so the question has been called on all the wonderful things that I said before and all the wonderful things that you all said before about the motion that we're now voting on the motion to amend the tentative budget by that $20,000. So let's vote.
Glenn Maury,
yes,
Martha Robertson,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Henry Grandison,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Anna Kellis,
yes,
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
no,
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Leslie McBean Claiborne.
Yes,
12 ayes, 1 no.
that carries. And then we are going to be now back to the main motion.
May I say something? I want to say thank you to folks for letting me have the opportunity to vote on that.
Oh, you're very welcome, Michael. Thanks, everyone. And it doesn't go unnoticed, Mike, that you talked about making sure that these things come earlier and that we see what's going on. So, okay. Now the main motion, the order of the day. Do we have to move and second that again? No, it was moved and seconded already. Are we ready to vote? Whether or not you are, I'm saying we are voting. Go ahead, Kathy.
Glenn Maury,
Yes.
Martha Robertson,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Henry Granson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Anna Kellis,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes,
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Leslie McBean Claiborne.
Yes,
13 ayes, 0 noes.
that carries unanimously. Thank you all for that. This is now going to public hearing. What date is that scheduled for?
November 10th, 7 p.m.
November 10th, 7 p.m. Please make sure you let our constituencies know about that date so that people can speak to us. And depending on what happens, there is still time for potential amendments. So everybody is aware of that. Mike Lane.
I just wondered, Kevin or Jason, did that change any of the figures in the budget adoption amendment that we had because of that final amendment? Or is everything still the same?
I think it's all the same because this is a one-time increase, not a levy. Is that correct, Kevin?
That's correct. It just increased the use of reserves by $20,000.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so the numbers remain the same. We're voted on it. Thank you very much. So November 10th, 7 p.m., public hearing, and then our final vote on the budget is the next legislature meeting following the public hearing. So thank you. I see Martha's hand.
Yeah, I want to thank my colleagues for taking the time and the attention to listen to this last minute request. And just to let you know, I have advised Law New York that they really need to pay a little bit closer attention to the county's budget schedule so this doesn't happen again. So thank you all for the late consideration.
Thank you, legislators, for working on this and getting us to the point of a tentative budget. There are more hands.
Deborah has a hand raised.
And Corman and then Deb Dawson.
Thank you. I wanted to ask if, I guess it would be from Dominic, if there's going to be a press release going out regarding the hearing with a link to the budget.
Yes, there will be.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody in administration and finance and the budget committee and all the other legislators for getting us this far.
All right, Deb Dawson. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I want to, hats off to Jason and Kevin. As always, you guys really do an amazing job. I do have a question. I know that we've got that new contract on the recycling pickup that we're going to be addressing in F&I, and I was wondering when we will have to make a determination on what the recycling charge is going to be, since that does not seem to be part of the formal budget process.
We defer to Jason.
Sure. You generally pass a resolution separate from the levy resolution that would set the solid waste fee. So that's done. I don't think it's done usually on the same night the budget's adopted. It's probably done a subsequent meeting. Is that correct, Kathy?
That's correct.
So you have time to, if after you review the contract and have an open discussion, if there's a reason to change it, you can. But it's not done on the same night as the levy.
So that doesn't have to be done until December.
I think the latest would be around December 1st, because remember, it does go on the tax bill. So I
Right,
think
but the
that's-
F&I hearing is, the F&I hearing is on the 19th, is it not, Mike?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we're gonna have to move on that, guys.
Yeah, that's why we're having to have the presentation at the F&I meeting, because of such a short time frame on these things.
Thanks, Mike.
And I don't think, Jason, you're not ready yet to say what you're going to recommend to the different options, are you?
No, we'll have something for you. It'll be part of your packet for F&I. So you'll know, I think that goes out November 9th to 10th. We'll have it in that packet. We'll make sure all the legislators get it as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Martha.
Can we have a poll of how many legislators can make that November 19th meeting? 'Cause it's-
I'm not gonna do that. If people want to do that, do that. I don't even know if people have, yeah. Who can-
I didn't mean right now. I didn't mean right now. I just meant if we can do it.
Can indicate, like respond to the email. Okay, that's a good request. So please let Mike know, as chair of F&I, if you'll be able to make the meeting. Because the idea is to try to get as many legislators in the loop before we have to make a decision on that.
It will be taped, so
I was
that,
gonna say it's streamed on YouTube too.
okay.
And streamed on YouTube and taped so you can watch it another time. Thank you. Is there any other business? Can I ask for $3 million for something? No? Shucks. All right. Move to adjourn.
Move.
Moved by Henry Granison, seconded by who? Anna Kellis. Everyone in favor of adjourning? Everybody's in favor of adjourning. We are adjourned. See you all next Thursday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Vote.